Marilyn Mosby, former prosecutor, is now talking out about her prosecution and also hopes that Biden gives her a pardon. I'm actually with her on this. Here's some of the interview. Here it is.
But it wasn't until after her push to prosecute the officers who killed Freddie Gray that she found herself on the other side of the courtroom, convicted of fraud for withdrawing funds from her own Baltimore deferred compensation retirement account, something 739 other city employees, including 3 people who worked in the same agency as Attorney Mosby, did during the pandemic. This was your money. Was there any public money involved in this transaction?
No, absolutely not. This was not, despite how I've been vilified, when the gag order was in place and I was unable to defend myself. It's just not PPP loans. This is not a COVID relief funding. This was the money that I was putting away every 2 weeks in a retirement savings account. And I was advised I could withdraw from this fund. There was, the person that testified, the government witness, got on the stand and said all I needed to do was suffer a $50 adversity.
Right.
And I had more than a $50 adversity as a result of COVID. So I didn't even take the stand. Right. Once that came out, right? And it's like, obviously, I'm not going to be convicted. I know that this was politically targeted.
With millions watching and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable, we just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show. I follow this case very closely. I actually interviewed Marilyn Mosby. I was one of the few people that was able to interview her on my radio program. We still have that interview online right now. This was after her attempted prosecution of the police officers who killed Freddie Gray. And she was in the state of Georgia and decided to sit and interview with me. I thought it was a fascinating interview. I also understood the nuances of the case and never believed that she would have been prosecuted given the fact that she was advised, the person that advised her incorrectly perhaps, did take the stand and say, I did advise her she could do this legally. And it was her money. It was not someone else's money. It was her money that she set aside every 2 weeks in her own retirement account. Here's more.
Talk about this, because you do say that you've been targeted. And why do you think that happened? Because the thing that changed between you indicting those officers in the Freddie Gray case and this is the president changed, the Justice Department changed, and Leo Wise got a lot more power. Talk about that a little bit.
So, I think that you've kind of touched upon all of it, right? Like when you look at the policies that were being implemented, not only did President Trump say, I need to prosecute myself, but 2 months after, Larry Krasner from Philadelphia and I called him out in the Washington Post, they started this investigation.
And who was Larry Krasner?
Larry Krasner is a Philadelphia district attorney.
Right. Is that you did have, the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, dismiss 2 prosecutors he claimed were George Soros progressives. There is this sort of, Bill Barr railed against you by name and others, saying that what you all were doing, disrupting the system in favor of the incarcerated, was destroying the system and you all needed to pay for it. Do you feel that that you are part of that?
He made it very clear in February of 2020 when he addressed the sheriffs of America that these rogue social justice prosecutors, we will do anything by any means necessary, whether jurisdictionally or any individual politician that comes in the rule of and goes between the rule of law. And so that's exactly what they have done, right? They've targeted me.
And this is her thoughts about the 40-year sentence.
They're trying to sentence you to 40 years. The sentencing is on the 23rd of May.
It is.
What do you want to see happen? I know there's a petition asking President Biden to pardon you. Is that what you want?
I think that that's appropriate. I don't believe that. I know that I've done absolutely nothing wrong, nothing criminal, and to be separated from my children for 40 years as a result of withdrawing $90,000 of my own money, it just makes absolutely no sense. It's illogical. And so, I want the people that I fought for. I fought so hard. First generation college student. They're trying to take my law license, as in an emergency petition, an unprecedented move. I want this justice system that I fought so hard to equalize and to balance the scales of justice, where the business model is based off the backs of Black and brown people, for the people that I fought for to understand and recognize that I need them to fight for me, not because it's Marilyn Mosby, but because something like this goes beyond Marilyn Mosby. If they can do this to Marilyn Mosby, who had the audacity to challenge the status quo, they can do this to anybody.
Put it a full mass. She makes compelling points. I think the argument is sound. Former Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby said on MSNBC that she did nothing wrong and she was targeted and awaits her sentencing, which could be up to 40 years. Too bad she doesn't have friends like the judge in New York did. Obviously, this is something that is extreme, considering also the colleagues that did the very same thing, because they were advised by their own financial advisors that it was permissible. Many received a civil penalty and not a criminal prosecution. This story has so many twists and turns that a lot of people could not follow the top and bottom of it. And because it is a federal trial, cameras are not allowed inside of that courtroom. And so you did not have the kind of information gathering that you would normally have. A federal jury did convict Mosby in February on the federal charge of making false mortgage application when she was Baltimore City State's attorney relating to the purchase of a condominium in Longboat Key, Florida. According to the evidence presented at trial, February 2021, Mosby made a false statement in her application for a $420,000 mortgage to purchase a condominium in Florida. She told the jury she bought vacation homes in Florida for financial independence. She had never owned any property before. And with her marriage on the rocks, she thought it was a good idea. But prosecutors said she lied on the mortgage documents to get a lower interest rate or lower interest rates, not telling her lenders that she had a tax lien and promising she would not rent out a home near Disney World when she'd already signed a contract to do so. And it's interesting, naturally, that this whole political dynamic was happening against her. The narrative was happening at the same time of this potential transaction. Jordan, I don't know if Biden is going to step up and do the thing that would seem like decent to do. But this is one of those cases where I've seen presidents make way worse pardon decisions than this one. What say you?
I don't know if mortgage fraud really raises to the level of a top priority for Biden or presidential pardon consideration. I mean, maybe it could happen. I think that they could, maybe they won't, but that they could throw the book at her over something like this is kind of ridiculous. It's not great that she lied to get a lower interest rate and then seemed to be set up to rent out for people for Disney World. It seems like a lot of controversy over relatively a small issue, but you want to hold all elected officials, past or present, to higher ethical standards or even just basic ethical standards. And again, it's like, that was you or me, we'd get in trouble. So we certainly wouldn't get pardons for it. So I don't know. I mean, if you do it and you lie, okay, maybe you should face some punishment.
Yeah, and I think that's the argument. The argument is she has faced the punishment, and the people around her, that when they were able to pull the records, okay, how many people that work for government did the very same thing? Oh, over 700 people that work for this government did the same thing. Well, they were allowed to have a civil penalty. She was the most high profile, of course, and received the most significant charge, which is that of a criminal statute. The 40-year thing is extreme. Now, remember, that is what is allowable under the max. That doesn't mean that's exactly what they're going to do. But the fact that you could get 40 years for something that the person next to you got a civil penalty for is quite extreme. And I do believe it is somewhat tied to the political reality of her prosecution of police officers. All right, we'll see. The update will come soon. Hopefully Biden will respond one way or the other.